Dragons may be your favorite fantasy animal, but horses are by far our most favorite real animal. Unfortunately, they're few and far between in animation, probably because they're notoriously one of the hardest animals to draw.
When horses do show up in animated media, they're often either really good or really not. Today, we're comparing the best and worst and ranking them all against each other.
Please note that this list is not at all complete. There are probably some obscure animated horses we haven't heard about, or maybe we just didn't feel like covering them.
We are trying to keep this video short enough for East not to lose her sanity editing it, after all. Some of the horses we included might not be well known, but we like them for one reason or another and wanted them to be a part of this list.
Since we can't include them all, if you don't see your favorite horse in this list, let us know your favorite in the comments and we'll tell you where it'd go in our rankings. We're looking at a combination of physical character design as well as the character's personality. How the character was animated will also be discussed, and if any of the movies or shows that we included have multiple equine characters that hold similar weight, we'll consider them as a whole. We're also taking anthropomorphization into account, so a not very realistic horse won't automatically be at the bottom.
While most of these movies and TV shows have been out for quite some time, consider this your spoiler warning for any of the media that these characters are from. Without further ado, let's start with number 15.
In last place is Main Attraction from the movie Goat.
Prepare yourselves.
North and I went back and forth on some of the rankings in this list, though for the most part our individual rankings were pretty similar, but this guy was unanimously in last place. I know I just said that anthropomorphized characters won't get thrown to the bottom just because they're not realistic, but Main Attraction can barely even be considered a horse, okay? I can get past the eyes, nose, and mouth on the front of the face. Most animated horses have at least one of these body parts in the wrong place, which is fine. It's even necessary in a lot of cases in order for the character to have a full range of human like expressions. The first problem I see is the overmuscling. Yes, this character is supposed to be a professional basketball player, or floorball, or whatever they call it. I don't know. I thought the movie was kind of dumb even without this guy. So you'd expect a lot of upper body muscling, but horses have very few muscles in their legs. Their lower legs don't even have any, which is in sharp contrast to Main Attraction, who looks like a halter bred quarter horse on steroids. Next is his apparent possession of a collarbone. Horses, and actually most quadrupeds, do not have a collarbone. Their shoulders are attached to the rest of them by muscle and tissue. Maine's broad, free swinging shoulders clearly indicate that he has a collarbone. If it wasn't so obvious, I could forgive it. All of the characters in this movie are clearly extremely humanized animals. This can also be seen with most of the joints bending the wrong way for their species. Again, something I can forgive in this context if it's done well. But then they have him get down on all fours and gallop. I cringed so hard whenever I saw Main Attraction on more than two legs. It just looked so wrong. But you want to know what the worst part is? His feet. His feet are all wrong, okay? I see a lot of horse feet. Between picking them out and even trimming them, the amount of time that I've spent looking at hooves throughout my entire lifetime can probably be measured in days. I'm pretty sure that horses only have one toe on each foot. But this guy has two. He has these stupid cloven hooves that I can only think were given to him in order for him to be able to hold a basketball. We can't see his back feet because they're only ever shown covered by sneakers, but I'd suspect that he has a similar affliction with those, plus some DSLD. I am being completely 100% honest when I say that I would prefer a heavily anthropomorphized horse character be able to hold and manipulate a basketball or any other object through the sheer power of cartoon logic than having cloven feet. I could actually suspend my disbelief better for cartoon logic. Anyways, I appreciate that they had his braids go down his neck like a real horse's mane, though I could have done without the facial hair, which is another thing that horses just don't have. The voice acting was fine, and the animators did their best with the model they were given, but he was much more of a jerk to the protagonist than his role warranted, and he honestly wasn't even that important. Ultimately, he was just playing for the opposing team. I could talk more about main attraction, but this section has already gone on for a lot longer than I intended, so let's just move on.
In 14th place is Spirit from Spirit Untamed. We will be including all three versions of Spirit in this video though, so stay tuned to see the rankings for the other two. To be honest, the character designs in this movie scare me more than the haunted house in Super Mario Bros. Wii, which is saying something. The horses in this movie have the same eyebrow issue that the original does, but since we overlooked it for the 2002 film, we overlooked it here. Aside from it being an unnecessary remake of the first episodes of Spirit riding free with an alternate ending, it was not a good movie. The writing absolutely contributed to this, but so did the horse designs. The horses are very smooth. It's hard to tell where the leg ends and the shoulder begins, and all of their necks are so thick that if they were real horses, they'd be considered heavily obese. But at least they're horse shaped with all the correct body parts, and the animation was realistic enough given the rigs the animators were working with. For some reason, a lot of the official renders give Spirit degenerative suspensory ligament disease, or DSLD, which causes the fetlocks to drop. This seems to be a frequent offender in animated horses for some reason. An easy way to tell when the horse is at a standstill is the shallow angle of the pasterns. They should be much steeper. I haven't actually watched this movie because I love myself too much to suffer through it, but East did, and she said that it was far more noticeable in the promotional renderings, so we're considering it a minor thing here. Probably the worst sin of this movie are the unrealistic expectations that Spirit's personality sets for kids. First of all, no Mustang fresh out of the wild is going to respect this fencing. They'll just jump out. In real life, the Bureau of Land Management, or BLM, requires adopters to have 6-foot fencing for a reason. Second, no Mustang is going to decide to arbitrarily trust one person in a day just because they're nice to him and someone else wasn't. Gentling Mustangs can absolutely be done, but it takes an experienced horse person, not a random girl who's never even ridden a horse. Did we forget to mention that? Spirit is way too trusting way too quickly, which is in sharp contrast to the original movie. It's almost offensive to watch, like they think the viewers are stupid. Honestly, the whole thing just spits on the original 2002 film, which, combined with everything else, is enough to justify this horse's low ranking. We're also mad that someone dared to put this version of Spirit into the same pose as the iconic Breyer model. Say what you want about the mold, but hello? So there's also that.
13th place goes to Donkey in Shrek 2, specifically after he's taken the potion and been turned into a more attractive version of himself. Which, let's be fair, the horse version does look better. Absolutely no hate to donkeys because they're actually really cute. It's just this animated one that was intentionally designed to look a little creepy. Donkey's physical design in this form isn't terrible. The proportions aren't fabulous, but all the joints bend the right way, and when he's animated like an actual horse, he is animated pretty correctly. The main problem we have with his design is the very large mouth. He has the same thing in his normal donkey form too, but for some reason it's more noticeable here. I do appreciate that it lets us see that the designers left a proper gap between the incisors and molars like a real horse has, but the mouth should not be hinging open that far back. Donkey's personality is also just kind of grating. Yes, sometimes he's funny, and the first two films at least do a decent job not overdoing it, but after a while it kind of wears on us. Again, the character design isn't terrible, but with everything combined, there are just a lot of animated horses we like better.
In 12th place is Pegasus from Disney's Hercules. I know, he's not a horse, but winds aside, he's horse-shaped, and we included donkeys, so we're going to include him too. When he's horsing, he horses quite well. His proportions aren't super realistic, but they do fit with the designs of the other characters and overall aesthetic of the movie quite well, so we can partially forgive that. The problem is when he's not horsing. Pegasus has a very playful personality, which some real horses have too. His is just taken to the extreme. The far, far extreme. During his more playful or snarky moments, he is quite heavily anthropomorphized and moves in ways that no horse possibly could. These movements are very inconsistent too, which is rather jarring and is a painfully sharp contrast when he's acting like a normal horse. His playful personality can also get irritating when pushed to the extreme like this. Overall, not a bad character, and his design certainly fits in with the rest of the movie, just not one of our favorites.
We're back to the Spirit franchise for 11th place, this time with Spirit riding free. Many of our problems with this version of Spirit are the same as with Spirit Untamed. Spirit trusts Lucky much too quickly, and the body definition on the horses isn't great. The pair also gets into a not insubstantial amount of highly unrealistic situations, and the characters don't have a ton of individual personality. But even though this is a Netflix TV show and has the budget of one, we much prefer the horse designs to that of the higher budget 2021 movie. The proportions are better, the horses don't all look obese, and they don't all have DSLD. The animators also took the time to make sure that the horses were animated well, at least when they're realistically horsing. Each of the main trio's horses also has a distinctly different build, another thing the 2021 film struggled with. And I'll openly admit that while it's been a while, I have seen every episode. So, no, not our favorite or even close, but the main three horses in this TV series are mostly passable.
We're now into the middle third of the rankings, with 10th place going to Mayor Windancer from Zootopia 2. Another heavily anthropomorphized character, and he does share a lot of the issues that East had with the main attraction: a clear collarbone, over-muscled front legs, joints that bend the wrong way, and a case of DSLD so bad he'd be put down if he was real. He also has quite the abundance of hair for a world without humans. Heavy feathering, like seen on Windancer's front legs, is something that only comes from selective breeding. However, all of these things stay consistent, and he does actually resemble a horse. We never see the mayor get down on all fours, nor does he have cloven hooves. He moves exactly as you'd expect a humanized horse to behave, so kudos to the animators. He's also just a great character in general. Patrick Warburton was the perfect choice for Windancer's voice and gave the mayor a lot of personality. He even got his own mini arc through the movie as he went from submissive to speaking up for what's right. It was also fun seeing little horse-like moments, like when he counts by tapping a hoof on the ground, which is a trick that some horses are actually trained to do. Some of the flaws in his design knock him down the rankings a bit, but overall, because of his fantastic personality and consistent movements, he's a solid character and a great addition to the franchise.
Ninth place goes to Horseland, a TV show known by any horse girl who grew up in the 2000s and had access to television. This may just be nostalgia talking since the show was a formative part of our childhoods, but for the time period and the budget, the horses look pretty good. They have the round bodies that aren't well defined problem, but since it's entirely 2D animation with flat colors, I'll excuse it here. What I can't excuse is how this horse is an Arabian and this horse is an Appaloosa. With the exception of Button and Pepper having wavy manes, all of these horses have extremely similar silhouettes. The streaks of color in the manes is also an interesting design choice, but I'll chalk it up to them wanting to sell toys. I also like how in the Wild Horses episode, none of the wild horses have color in their manes, and Puma is the only one with streaks at all. Maybe the streaks form as the horses are domesticated? I don't know. The horses also move kind of funky sometimes, and the show itself uses a lot of incorrect terminology and correct terminology used incorrectly. But for a nostalgic kids show, I think this mid range ranking is deserved.
Moving on to 8th place, we have Khan from Mulan. While we're not really a fan of his physical design, just from our own aesthetic preferences, it does suit the movie perfectly and is clearly inspired by ancient Chinese depictions of horses. It also isn't used as comic relief or to excuse an unrealistic situation. He has a fun personality, and while his facial expressions are sometimes more human like, Khan behaves very much like a horse for almost the entire movie. Our only big complaint is how brave he is during the scene on the mountain. He's seen running towards the danger, which is very unhorse-like of him. There are some incredibly brave horses out there, but self-preservation almost always wins. We find it highly unlikely that a horse would actively run towards an avalanche, but otherwise, Khan is great.
Seventh place goes to the Fjords in Frozen. Yes, their eyes are on the fronts of their faces, and they have eyebrows, but You can tell that they're fjords. This is a real breed of horse that originated in Norway, the same region Frozen is based on. Something that irritates me to no end is seeing Andalusians and Frisians in live action movies when the setting is nowhere near where those breeds originated. Seeing fjords in Norway, or at least a setting based around Norway, is very refreshing. They're also colors that are realistic to the breed, with Anna's horse being a more rare variation. Some of the proportions are a little questionable, such as the toothpick legs, but overall the horses fit the style of the movie, so I'll forgive it. Also, props to Disney for using bitless bridles. Realistically, this is probably more of a we don't feel like dealing with a bit getting in the way of our horse's facial expressions thing, but seeing bitless representation in media is still nice. We also think that Citron, Han's horse, is particularly funny during the dock scene. Anthropomorphized, sure, but to great comedic effect. Good job, Disney. These are some solid animated horses.
You didn't think you'd be seeing Hunchback of Notre Dame on this list, did you? Well, think again, because sixth place goes to Achilles. He's the faithful companion of Phoebus, with whom he gets along well. Eyebrows and occasionally floppy ears aside, Achilles is designed quite well, with decent enough proportions given the overall aesthetic of the movie. He kind of just vibes for most of the movie, but does help out by sitting on guard at one point. While it's played off in a more anthropomorphized way, horses are incredibly smart and can absolutely be taught to sit. A voice command like the one Phoebus uses can also be used to cue a trained behavior. Plus, we get the Achilles heel joke. He doesn't serve the biggest role in the movie, which knocked him down in the rankings a bit, but he's a very good boy, and we have no complaints.
On to the top five, and in fifth place we have another 2D animated horse, Philippe from Beauty and the Beast. While slightly more cartoonish than Achilles, Philippe's design is clearly inspired by the heavy French draft breeds. His strong but gentle nature allows him to both pull a cart and be used as a riding horse. He's incredibly loyal, but unlike Khan, he does avoid danger. When approached with a choice between two paths, Philippe tries to go on the path with good vibes because something's clearly off about the other one. He does go on the shadowy path when prompted, indicating that he's trained well and brave, but he remains alert and has a realistic spook that prompts him to run back home. A lot of horses have a good general sense of which way home is, so this is perfectly acceptable animated horse behavior. Just an excellent example of a cartoon horse that still behaves like a horse.
Fourth place goes to Knock from Frozen 2. Say what you want about the movie, Knock is pretty cool. He may not be an actual horse, but he's horse-shaped and moves like one, which is good enough for us. Since he's more of a magical spirit than an actual horse, we're not going to penalize him for things like unrealistic build compared to regional horses, or for having slightly unrealistic proportions, which we wouldn't hit on too hard anyway, since he does fit the style of the movie. So why do we like him so much? His design is really cool, and he was animated incredibly well. The scene where he's galloping towards Holland on top of the water is absolutely incredible, and he's galloping just like a horse should. He's also got a solid personality that reminds me of both a horse and a spirit. The fact that the designers and animators made a convincing horse out of water alone is also extremely impressive.
Snagging the first spot in the coveted top three is Maximus from Tangled. While his design is definitely stylized to fit the movie, his proportions aren't terrible, and his animation is quite realistic when he's doing normal horse things. Even when he's not doing normal horse things, the animators often kept a realistic range of motion in mind. Our favorite scene with Maximus is when he's trying to find Eugene by sniffing the ground like a dog would. This may seem unrealistic to some, but we actually know a real horse who does this very thing, and this scene always reminds us of him. He's also an incredibly lovable and loyal guy who enjoys praise and aims to please. Plus, he's hilarious, so it's easy to suspend your disbelief. Maximus does get into a couple unrealistic situations, such as falling off the cliff and jumping from the castle onto a nearby roof, which does hurt his ranking a bit. But seeing as other characters survived these and other similar they survived this moments in the movie, we can suspend our disbelief enough to give him third place.
Second place, and I will note that it's by a slim margin, goes to Angus from Pixar's Brave. I'm going to be honest, I personally don't like Brave. East does, it's just not my thing. But I love Angus. He's such a galoomph. Not only does he have the gentle, loving personality attributed to many draft breeds, he also has an incredibly realistic design for an animated movie and fabulous animation. Him galloping and jumping through the forest without taking a wrong step is an incredibly impressive bit of animation. The best part about Angus is probably how realistic all of his reactions are. Yes, he's brave enough to gallop through all sorts of terrain without batting an eye, but the second he feels the energy shift at the stone circle, he comes to a sharp stop. Animals, and especially horses, are very attuned to shifts in energy and emotion, and it was really nice to see that highlighted here. He's loyal enough to stay nearby, but he knows the stone circle is bad news and stays firmly outside of it. You could compare it to a steady trail horse who stops suddenly for no apparent reason, only for the trail to give way just a few feet ahead. The horse knows better than the rider. Another good example of a realistic reaction is at the witch's cottage when there's a loud boom. We get a quick cut to the outside of the cottage, where a resting Angus startles and flees a short distance. Our only complaint about Angus is that he's meant to be a Clydesdale, and Easton and I think he looks more like a Shire. But honestly, the two breeds look really similar, so this is just a nitpicky thing. There's a bonus feature on the Blu-ray version that goes into the research the design team did for Angus, including visiting a Clydesdale farm. And we do greatly appreciate that they went with a native Scottish breed for a movie set in Scotland. He's also really cute and absolutely deserving of his second place position.
Well, this is it. The moment you've been waiting for. Who is our number one pick for Best Animated Horse? The answer, of course, is Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron. Every American horse girl growing up in the early 2000s has seen this movie, or at the very least heard of it.
In case you haven't heard of it, Spirit follows the story of a Mustang stallion by the same name. We see him as a colt, a young stallion leading his herd, captured by colonizers, recaptured by Native Americans, given his freedom back, captured again, and then finally winning his freedom for good. It's a beautiful story about man versus nature and the complexities of trust. It also serves as a parallel to colonizers spreading west into Native American territories and imposing their will and methods upon them.
The spirit is slightly anthropomorphized and does have Matt Damon narrating for him a few times. The movie is largely without dialogue unless there are humans on screen. Most of the characters' emotions are displayed through body language alone, which is a huge compliment to the animators. There are a couple they survived this moments, and some of Spirit's actions are more human-like than a horse would ever do, but for the most part, the entire team that worked on this movie demonstrated a clear understanding of equine behavior.
Spirit's design is directly based on a real Mustang named Donner. The animators studied him intently when creating this movie, and you can clearly tell the amount of effort they put in when you see the beautiful animation. East does have some things to say about the color genetics of Spirit and his herd, but because this movie is otherwise so good, she promised to behave and keep her mouth shut, at least for now.
While it may not have performed as well at the box office as Dreamworks hoped, it's since gained somewhat of a cult following and is still relevant enough that it inspired two spin offs. Spirit and Rain even had Breyer models made of them, something none of the other horses on this list can claim. And no other animated horse captures the, well, spirit of a real horse nearly as well as this one does. 10 out of 10.
And that's it. We've made it through ranking 15 animated horses. And we want to know, what do you think? Would you have ranked them differently? If so, why? Are there any animated horses we didn't include that you wish we had? Let us know in the comments.
And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more movie review content.